Good morning, everybody. So, just wanted to take you through a review of the new Indictement Expert Advisor. So, this Expert Advisor, just to start off here on the sales page, was put out by Profalgo Limited. And Profalgo, and I believe the founder is Mr. Wim, pardon my pronunciation, but Schrinemakers. I believe he's a Dutch gentleman. And he's also the creator of the Gold Reaper and the Gold Trade Pro softwares. So he is really a well-known expert advisor developer, and at least from my experience, his previous EAs have all been very good. They tend to not cheat, to use real price action based strategies. Therefore, I've never actually tested this one before, but let's hope that it follows all of his previous results and also gives us an excellent system. Maybe I'll just start scrolling through here and seeing what's up. So maybe we'll check out the live signal quickly. Okay, it's looking pretty good. It's new. So just by looking at the equity curve here, we can see that this appears to be a real trading system. So it's not a beautifully smooth, perfect equity curve. The amount of leverage being used seems reasonable, but ultimately there's going to be wins and losses, right? That just simply happens. Maybe I can see the trading history. So best trade, oh interesting, okay, so it appears to perhaps have a positive risk reward because the best trade is higher than the worst trade. And if we just scroll up here real quick, we can see it's 100% algo trading. It's running on IC Trading MT5, so it's a good broker, it's IC Markets, and there is 83 trades, which is relatively statistically significant, so ultimately it looks quite good. Let me just look to see if I can gather anything more about the risk-reward statistics here. So looking at it, this is an indices trading system, to be expected. And ultimately, yeah, it seems to have a positive risk reward so far, but I might be able to ascertain that a bit better. And naturally, as this trades indices and we're currently in a bit of a bull market, there's going to likely be more long trades than there are going to be short trades. However, we'll be able to see more when we actually run a proper backtest. Let's go back to the actual sales page here and just kind of read through the description. So as we can see, all trades use both a stop loss and a take profit. They use a trailing stop loss, makes sense. So this effectively is very similar to his Gold Reaper system, which also uses a trailing stop loss. Many scalping systems use this. My own scalping systems also use trailing stop losses, as I find that it tends to significantly improve your risk reward. If you use a fixed take profit, like it hits take profit and you're done. But if you happen to catch a bigger move, you might be able to capitalize on that using a trailing stop loss. So that actually helps you quite a bit. And here he's saying that it trades the US 500, so S&P, the Dow, US 30, and the NASDAQ. So US equity indices makes sense because they're all actually extremely correlated. So NAS tends to be a bit more volatile, US 30 as well. S&P 500 is a bit more calm, but ultimately it makes sense. And how it actually works here, the system is built on a very popular and proven strategy, trading breakouts of important support and resistance levels. Okay, so it's the exact same system as the Gold Reaper effectively, or maybe not exactly the same, but there's definitely some similarities. Whereas usually, in my experience, he posts pending orders at key breakout levels, and he snipes or scalps profit once price tends to clear those levels. This is actually very similar to one of my own systems called the Golden Sniper, which does this on gold, except in a very scalping manner, so tends to scalp quite quickly. But if you like this type of system, we also offer one here at Prosperity Algo Solutions. Okay, so here he's saying how to run a backtest, and then we can go ahead and run our backtest. Make sure you fill the correct symbols to the three indices. Fair, so make sure that when you're running it, if your broker uses a different symbol or puts a certain prefix or suffix behind it, make sure that everything matches. Okay, so to save us all some time, I've gone ahead and downloaded the trial version from the MT5 marketplace in the terminal. And then I effectively have already ran a backtest using WIM's specified parameters of the Euro USD on a 1 hour chart. And here I also chose to use every tick based on real ticks, as that often is the most accurate form of backtesting. It is also the most punitive, but it is, generally speaking, the most accurate, and it will beat up your backtest a bit. And then, to his point, you have to be quite careful to make sure that you're using the right symbols for the various indices. WIM, I believe, runs IC markets, so they're a little bit different than, for instance, I use 8cap. And with 8cap, the US 500 is, for instance, the SPX 500. So in the inputs tab, you would have to make sure that whatever the name of the symbol is you're trading is correctly specified. Maybe just to quickly go through some of his parameters here. For instance, you're able to have some slight adjustments to the strategy, such as going long only, short only, if you want to trade on Friday. But generally speaking, there isn't a ton shared about the nuances of the strategy. You are able to specify which of the strategies you want to trade, but it seems like this is an assortment or a combination of a variety of different strategies. Therefore, you might not have quite as much control if you were, for instance, trading more of a candlestick-based strategy. So something to keep in mind. It is a bit of a more obscure, not obscure, it's a private strategy, right? So you're going to have to trust in the qualifications of the developer, and it's some people have a preference to maybe see a little bit more what's happening, but to each their own. And here you're able to effectively choose which of the indices you want to trade, if you want to trade all of them, or if you want to perhaps just trade one. You're able to specify if you want to go long and short. You have a decent amount of ability to specify what risk you want to use. And you're also able to apply various filters for NFP, CPI, interest rate changes, as well as the hours of trading. All of which makes sense because depending on your personal preferences, you might see some pretty significant spikes during news events. To each their own. I find that in some systems, such as breakout systems, trading news can actually be quite beneficial, but I guess you have the choice of running backtests with both. And before we actually run a visual backtest, I wanted to just show you the longer term backtest, just to give you an idea of how the system works. And this is really a 2024 year-to-date backtest. As you can see, it's a great equity curve. I believe here I started with $10,000, so we're getting to around 14. We even reached 16 at a certain point, or close to 17. Therefore, it's a very profitable system. You don't have a purely smooth equity curve. That's usually a good sign because there's no martingale, there's no cheating. It doesn't appear to be overly spread sensitive. So this looks like a good system so far. Let's take a look at these metrics that you guys are able to also check it out. But as you can see, the win rate here is around 66%. Okay, so in that case, I have a feeling that, contrary to what I said in my previous little clip, it is probably a negative risk-rewards ratio system, simply because if your win rate's getting closer to the 60s and you're winning significantly more than you're losing, this usually means that your losses are going to be a little bit more significant on average than your wins, just because of how random probabilities tend to be distributed. But as you can see, it's a relatively profitable system. Here we're seeing 40% gains in a year, so it's not relatively, it's a very profitable system. All of the metrics are looking good. High Sharpe ratio, payoff ratio is looking good. So ultimately, it's looking quite solid. And the ratio between shorts and longs is also fairly balanced. So perfect. Now let's do a quick visual backtest so we can get an idea how to jump into the backtest or the visual backtest or an MT5. We can see that the system opens a ton of tabs. So Wim recommended running it on the Euro USD simply because there's the largest quantity of ticks there. However, it should not be trading the Euro USD and does not appear to be. If we move over to some of the indices, such as the SPX or such as the Dow here, we can see that we're getting some hints of how the strategy works. And to my hypothesis, which I had initially thought, it is very similar to the Gold Reaper. So perhaps if we zoom into the H1, we can see that it's placing pending orders at key levels of support and resistance. So how this typically works, because I've coded similar systems, is you'll look for local minima and maxima. So to give you an idea, like you'll look for a high point between bars where there's lower bars on both sides of said high point, and the inverse is true for low points, where you'll look for bars which are higher on both sides, and then you'll effectively have resting orders at that level. And when price reaches that level, you will see the order will be opened and a trailing stop loss will soon be executed. That appears to be the strategy. So I'm sure there's other nuances behind it, and we can see that for the different ones here. But this is a good system. Like usually this approach tends to work, especially with volatile assets like indices, or I use it on gold usually. You can find that when reaching key support and resistance levels, there tends to be a degree of reactions, and that reaction is often a continuation. Some people could argue that, hey, perhaps it would be a reversal, which obviously also happens sometimes, but quite often if you're using a tight enough take profit, there's enough of a move beyond that level that you'll be able to make some money. Let me see now of the trades it's making. So yeah, here you can see there's a ton of different pending orders, and perfect, we can now see some actual trades taking place. Interesting. So there are some relatively large take profits, and there's some very small ones as well. So this would indicate to me there's a degree of like dynamic stop losses going on. Let's see if he has any indicators here. Interesting. So perhaps it's based on an ATR value, or perhaps on a range. If we zoom into the H1, we can see that there is his strategy is looking back, hence this red line which is tracing the previous bars. But how exactly he's determining his dynamic stop loss, we'd have to do a bit more digging. But ultimately, and what matters, is this does appear to be a real trading system. The exact nuances are proprietary, and that's the developer's business. However, the fact that it is based on a real strategy, this isn't just random buying and selling, is a very good sign. So likely there is a degree of edge here. So yeah, I think that's to wrap up there. That is the review of the Indicement system by Wim. I would actually test it out. Like, it does seem to be quite a good system in my opinion. And if there's any track record, obviously speaks volumes. And Wim being one of the best developers on the MQL5 marketplace, I always am very interested to see when he puts out new stuff. So always be skeptical, but this does appear to be a solid system. And yeah, I'd recommend that you explore